everybody, Mike here with Delta Faucet. Today, I'm gonna walk you through how to install a single-handle pull-down bathroom faucet with Diamond Seal technology. This technology has included integrated supply lines which connect directly to your supply shutoffs and reduces leak points. Now to start, let's take a look at your sink configuration. If you have a single hole in your countertop, then you will need a single-handle faucet. However, if you have a 3-hole, 4-inch configuration, you can still use the single-handle faucet. You'll just need to add the included base plate. I think it's a good idea to confirm that you have 4 inches between the centers of your 2 outside holes, so take a quick minute to go ahead and double check that measurement. Today, we'll be installing the Trinsic model, but Delta offers a variety of styles and finishes for this type of faucet. Okay, let's collect the tools and supplies we'll need to complete this installation. You will need 2 adjustable wrenches, some safety glasses, a Phillips head screwdriver, and I recommend a long Phillips head screwdriver because it makes it that much easier to work behind the sink, maybe some silicone, a flashlight for working behind your sink, a small bucket for when we flush some lines, and I think it's a good idea to grab a couple towels. All right, once you've got all those tools and supplies, let's dive in. Okay, so the first step of this installation is placing your faucet into your countertop hole. But before we do that, we want to verify that this little foam ring is seated correctly on the underside of your faucet body, like so. Once that's in there, we can go ahead and move over to our countertop. And you'll notice here, I'm installing this on a single hole configuration, but if your configuration at home was that 3-hole, 4-inch one, this is the spot I'd want to use that base plate to cover those outside holes before placing my faucet down into the center hole. If everything looks good, we're going to take our supply lines and our spout hose and feed those down through the center hole carefully. And as the faucet comes down to our countertop, we want to be careful to make sure that little foam ring isn't getting pinched in any way. Now you'll notice I'm installing my faucet on a smooth countertop surface. However, if your surface at home was a little bit irregular, I would definitely recommend adding a small bead of silicone around the underside of the faucet to guarantee a watertight seal. Also, depending on your faucet model, you may notice that when you let it go, the faucet wants to fall forward a little bit, which is totally fine. We just want to make sure that it's not going to fall forward into the sink. Now, a little bit of a pro tip here is if you have an extra set of hands available or even just some painter's tape, you can use that to help hold the faucet in place. Which will make the next step that much easier. Everything's looking great up here, so let's move underneath the sink and start tightening everything up. Now that we have our faucet dropped into our countertop, we can move on to securing it in place. So to do this, I'm going to be using a mounting bracket, also a mounting nut, and the included tool. Now the first thing I want to do is make sure that the mounting nut is preloaded into the bottom of my tool here, like so. Second, we have this bracket here I want to talk about for a second. You'll notice it has 2 sides. It has a flat metal side, and it has a side that has these 2 locking screws on it. I want to make sure that when I'm feeding this up to hold the faucet in place, that the flat metal side is going to come in contact with the bottom of my countertop. Also, you notice it has this open side right here, and that's to allow some space for my water supply lines. So as I'm tightening this up underneath the faucet, I'm making sure that I'm not pinching those supply lines. Once you're ready, we're going to go ahead and grab our sprayer hose here, feed it through the center of our bracket, followed by the center of the nut and our included tool. All 3 of those are going to go all the way up the sprayer hose, again keeping an eye on those water supply lines, and then I'm going to begin threading that nut onto the bottom of the faucet. And again, double checking this open side to make sure it's not going to pinch any of my supply lines. Right behind it is the mounting nut and my tool. I think it's easier too, once you get it started, you can pull the tool off, hold the bracket towards the top of your countertop, and then spin the mounting nut the rest of the way up the shank. Once I get towards the top, I'm going to confirm making sure nothing's getting pinched, and then use my tool, give the last couple turns to snug it up into place. Okay, once that's snug, I want to check alignment up top one last time to make sure I'm happy with the position of the spout. And if I am, I can give it another half turn or so to hold it in place, and then come back in with my Phillips head screwdriver to tighten each one of the locking screws. Starting on one side, working my way to the other side. And as I do this, I want to make sure that the screws are snug. I don't want to over tighten these because I could cause damage to the threads. Okay, that looks great. All right, we've got that faucet securely in place. Now I can move on to making our connections. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take my sprayer hose weight and put it over my sprayer hose like so. And next I'm gonna take my adapter. Now the adapter has a small side and a larger side. I'm gonna start with the small side, pushing the hose all the way in as far as it will go. After that, I'm gonna take my adapter, making sure that my hose isn't wrapped around any of my plumbing or any of my stub outs, and then connect it to the spout hose like so, and then we're going to clip it into place. Making sure I get a good clip at the top and the bottom. I think it's a good idea to just give it a little bit of a tug to make sure I've got a nice connection. Okay, we've got our sprayer hose all connected, so now I can move on to connecting our supply lines. Now the first thing I'll point out is the supply lines are color coded. You'll see we have a red side for hot and a blue side for cold. I'm gonna start with my hot side, connecting it to my supply stub out. Now, one thing you'll notice is the stub out and the line might be a little bit long for where the stub out is located. Now there's a couple ways you can deal with this. The first is making kind of a helix shape, and the second is you can actually put a loop in the line if you need to. However, if you do have to loop it, just be careful you're not looping it so tightly that it could cause a kink. Once you're ready, bring your supply line to your stop, and then hand tighten the nut onto your supply stop. Once it's on there, you want to use an adjustable wrench to give it another turn and a half to kind of tighten it up just enough that it's snug and won't create a leak. We don't want to over tighten this. Okay, that feels nice and snug, so now I'm going to repeat the same steps for my cold side. Got those both tightened up, and I've made one last check to make sure my sprayer hose isn't interfering with any of my lines or my plumbing, so now I can move on to installing my drain. We have other videos for that, so be sure to check those out, then come back here and we'll move on to the next step. So we've got our drain hooked up and we've made all our connections underneath the sink, which moves us into the final phase of this installation. The first thing I want to check is my final alignment, just making sure that my faucet is centered and square to my sink, which everything looks perfect. And next we're gonna go on and flush our lines. And basically what this means is running water through our faucet to clear any debris that may have been caught in there during the installation process, which could lead to a flow issue down the road. So to do this, the first thing I'm gonna do is take my washcloth or a rag and place it in the bottom of my sink. That way if I drop any small parts, they don't go down the drain. Next, I'm gonna remove the aerator from the end of my spout. And to do that, I'm gonna use this aerator wrench that has these teeth on top that correspond with the indents on the bottom of my aerator. Now, since this is a pull-down faucet, I can go ahead and pull it towards me to get good access to the aerator, and then use my wrench to just gently unscrew the aerator from the faucet. Okay, we go ahead and take that aerator out, then set it off to the side. Now, if you didn't see a little rubber gasket come out, that's totally fine. Not all models have one. However, I do want to check to make sure it's not still stuck up in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick look just to confirm that the end of my spout is clear. Once that's done, we're ready to start running water through our system. Now to do this, what I'm gonna do is make sure that my supply stops underneath my sink are in the off position. Then I'm gonna come back to my faucet and turn it into the full mixed position, which means all the way on and then halfway between hot and cold. After that's complete, I'm gonna go underneath my sink again and turn on both of my supply stops, allowing water to run through my faucet for say around like 30 seconds. After that's done, I'm gonna leave those supplies on, come back up top and turn the water off from the handle of the faucet. Now, a little bit of a pro tip here is since we have that aerator out of our spout, there's gonna be some additional water pressure, which could lead to some additional splashing around my sink area. So one thing I like to do is use my rag or my washcloth here, just wrap it around the spout and hold it tight, and that should help cut down on the splashing. All right, with all that said, and once you're ready, let's go ahead and run some water through our faucet. Okay, we've flushed our lines and now can reinstall our aerator just in the reverse order that we did before. Making sure I'm not cross-threading the aerator, getting it started, and then using my aerator wrench to tighten it into place. And as I do this, I don't want to over-tighten the aerator, I just want it to snug up into the faucet. Okay, that about wraps up this installation. The final step would be go back under your sink one last time to check for any evidence of leaks that might need to be corrected. And as a final pro tip, you'll notice on the edge of your aerator wrench, it's got these little notches. That's to clip it into your supply lines underneath the sink. That way, if you ever need it in the future, you know exactly where to find it. Okay, I hope this installation went well for you, and if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to the Delta Faucet customer service team. They're more than happy to help.